Between the years 2019 and 2023, an American monolith quietly disassembled itself. In the span of just 48 months, exactly 7,631 congregations systematically detached from the United Methodist Church. According to a comprehensive 2024 analysis published by the Lewis Center for Church Leadership, this mass exodus erased 25% of the denomination's physical footprint in the United States, taking 24% of its total membership along with it. We are conditioned to think of religious collapse in terms of empty pews or a slow organic fade of belief. But the data reveals something far more violent. For over a century, the United Methodist Church operated as a sprawling, omnipresent religious bureaucracy. It held a physical outpost in nearly every county in the nation. To the casual observer, it projected complete stability. But beneath the institutional surface, the infrastructure was buckling. According to Dr. Ryan Burge, a political scientist and religion statistician, the sheer scale of this fracture can only be described as the largest denominational schism in American history since the Civil War. We are not witnessing a mere theological disagreement over human sexuality. We are witnessing a catastrophic corporate divorce, a complex system of real estate, pension liabilities, and bureaucratic governance shattering under the weight of decades of ideological polarization. Millions of dollars have been spent negotiating the ownership of vacant architecture. Faceless legal entities have engaged in prolonged warfare over who owns the physical structures of a fracturing faith. When a centralized institution loses 25% of its network in 4 years, the mechanism of collapse warrants a precise autopsy. The fracture was not a random scattering. It was a highly organized demographic sorting. According to the final report from the Lewis Center for Church Leadership issued in January 2024, the exodus was overwhelmingly geographic. 71% of the disaffiliating churches were located in just 2 regions, the southeastern and south central jurisdictions. Prior to the split, these 2 regions contained 52% of all United Methodist churches. By the time the exit window closed, they represented the vast majority of the departures. The map of the schism perfectly overlays the map of modern American political polarization. The data reveals a stark homogenization among those who left. Demographic analyses by the Lewis Center show that while the denomination as a whole was 89.6% white in 2019, the departing congregations were 97.8% white. Black congregations, constituting 7.2% of the denomination, accounted for only 2% of the exits. Furthermore, 84% of the exiting congregations were led by male pastors, compared to 71% in the broader church. A 2026 study published in the peer-reviewed Sociology of Religion journal corroborates this institutional realignment. By analyzing clergy data, researchers found that departing pastors were heavily aligned with conservative political ideologies, leading ideologically uniform populations. The institution did not simply split, it polarized, shedding a highly specific demographic profile and leaving behind an entirely altered institutional body. To grasp the severity of this corporate rupture, you must understand the absolute power of the United Methodist Trust Clause. Since the year 1750, dating back to a model deed drafted by founder John Wesley, the Methodist system relied on a singular legal mechanism to maintain control over its vast empire. Paragraph 2501 of the Book of Discipline mandates that all local church property is held in trust for the benefit of the entire denomination. In practice, a local congregation may purchase the land, fund the construction, and pay for the maintenance, but the corporate entity retains ultimate ownership. For centuries, this covenantal safeguard bound thousands of independent buildings into a single, massive asset portfolio. But in 2019, facing irreconcilable internal divisions, the General Conference introduced paragraph 2553 into the Book of Discipline. This temporary provision offered a highly restricted, financially punitive exit strategy. To gain release from the trust clause, a local church needed a 2/3 supermajority vote and the capital to pay severe financial exit fees. According to the legislation, departing churches were forced to pay their share of unfunded pension liabilities, years of denominational apportionments, and in some annual conferences, up to 50% of the appraised value of their real estate. It was a corporate buyout on a monumental scale, Thousands of congregations liquidated savings, took out massive commercial loans, or forfeited endowments just to buy back the buildings they had originally built. When paragraph 2553 expired on December 31st, 2023, the temporary exit door was bolted shut. By October 2024, the United Methodist Judicial Council issued Decision 1512, declaring no other pathways existed to bypass the trust clause. The bureaucratic machine locked down its remaining assets. When internal mechanisms fail, friction spills into secular courts. As the cost of disaffiliation skyrocketed, the warfare over the trust clause migrated to the civil justice system. The strategy shifted from ecclesiastical negotiation to aggressive litigation based on neutral principles of property law. The most glaring exposure of the denomination's legal vulnerability materialized in Dothan, Alabama. Harvest Church, a congregation of 1,600 members that originated in a local middle school in 1977, engaged in a multi-year lawsuit against the Alabama West Florida Conference over the ownership of its $15 million campus. Harvest Church argued it never explicitly consented to the denominational trust clause in its local property deeds. In March 2026, Houston County Circuit Judge Christopher K. Richardson delivered a devastating blow to the core of United Methodist governance. The court ruled that Harvest Church was the absolute, exclusive owner of its property. Judge Richardson dismantled the unilateral power of the denomination, stating in his ruling that a party cannot claim an interest in another's property simply by writing it down in a 900-page internal rulebook without mutual consent. If an institution could arbitrarily enforce ownership simply by printing it in their own manual, the concept of personally owned property would cease to exist. This ruling established a highly dangerous precedent for the remaining institution. It proved that the foundational bedrock of the denomination's wealth could be nullified by secular judges examining localized deeds. Across the country, congregations realized that the vast bureaucratic authority of the church was an illusion constructed on outdated legal assumptions. The corporate structure was deeply fragile. A system cannot lose 25% of its operating units without triggering massive financial contraction. The exodus of over 7,600 congregations left behind a hollowed-out financial structure scrambling to support an infrastructure built for a bygone era. The immediate casualty was the denominational budget, funded heavily by apportionments demanded from local churches. With 25% of those revenue streams permanently severed, the General Council on Finance and Administration was forced to execute unprecedented cuts. The agency proposed a 2025 to 2028 denominational budget ranging from $346.7 million to $370.5 million. This represents a staggering reduction of over 40% compared to the $604 million budget approved in 2016. According to financial leaders, this is the lowest budget the denomination has seen since 1984. Decades of institutional growth erased in 4 years. Major denominational agencies, including global ministries and higher education, faced budget cuts of over 50%. The bureaucratic machinery that governed global initiatives is being rapidly dismantled. But the most critical crisis loomed over the clergy pension system. Westpath Benefits and Investments, the agency serving over 100,000 participants worldwide, faced an existential threat. The legacy pension framework, known as the Clergy Retirement Security Program, relied heavily on a defined benefit model that guaranteed lifetime income. This model requires a continually growing stable base of contributing churches to remain solvent. The sudden demographic collapse made that mathematically impossible. To prevent a total collapse of the retirement system, Westpath initiated a radical restructuring. According to official agency documents, the defined benefit plan will be entirely closed to active clergy at the end of 2025. In January 2026, the denomination will transition to the Compass Plan, an account-based defined contribution model similar to a corporate 401k. Under Compass, the church's financial obligation ends at the point of contribution. The institution is aggressively capping its long-term liabilities and limiting its exposure to its own workforce just to ensure survival. The statistics leave no room for ambiguity. 25% of the physical infrastructure has vanished. Financial reserves have been halved. The legal framework that held properties in absolute trust has been pierced by secular courts. And retirement promises made to generations of institutional workers have been permanently altered to stop the financial bleeding. The story of the United Methodist split is the anatomy of modern institutional decay. It highlights the profound friction between massive, entrenched bureaucratic systems and the rapid, uncontrollable shifts in human behavior. The institution attempted to manage the crisis through structured legislation, massive exit fees, and locked doors. But you cannot legislate loyalty, and you cannot extract a connectional system from a population that has already psychologically disconnected. What remains is a liminal space, a contracted bureaucracy staring at a drastically altered demographic map. The United Methodist Church will survive, but it will do so as a fundamentally different entity, forced to operate within the hollowed-out shell of its former scale. The data tells a story of inevitable, irreversible change. It is a testament to the terrifying speed at which seemingly permanent structures can unravel when the people inside them simply decide to walk away. And it leaves us staring into a deeply unsettling void. If a centuries-old monolith can be meticulously disassembled in just 48 months, what other foundational institutions are currently standing on hollow ground?